Hello and welcome to the Cinephrauds. This is Mike Crowley from You'll Probably Agree, and we have Alex Clace from Silence of the Limbs podcast.
Science of the Limbs.
Aha, I got
you
it
heard that
right.
correctly.
Yes.
But also follow me on Twitter at Al Clace. That's ALKLAES.
Ah, I see. At Al Clace.
On Twitter, on Instagram, and that's it. Yeah.
You can find You'll Probably Agree on YouTube and at YPA Reviews. That's also our Twitter handle at YPA Reviews, all lowercase. YPA. You'll Probably Agree. There we go. Nobody's going to listen to my shit anyways. Anyways.
If they're already here and they won't listen to your stuff, like, God forbid my stuff.
No. That's everybody's got a show these days. Anyways. Today we're going to be talking about Alien Covenant, the newest movie, the very hyped movie from Ridley Scott, his return to the Alien franchise. I know when the movie ended, you were itching to talk about it. So what are your thoughts on Alien Covenant?
I think it's funny that you said it was highly anticipated because I'm a huge Alien fan, and I feel like it was anticipated 2 years ago when they announced it, and they announced it under a different director, right? And then
yeah, it was originally going to be Neil Blomkamp, I believe, or the guy who did District 9. It was going to wrap up Ridley's story and all that.
Yeah, and he got cut, and then he showed all those cool sketches, concept ideas for the movie on Instagram and everything, and everyone was like, oh man, like, we missed out on such a great movie. And then Ridley Scott's like, don't worry, like, Daddy's back or whatever. And that was around when what's his name got Fury Road back.
Fury Road, yes. Damn it, why don't George Miller?
Yeah,
George Miller.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's George.
And he took back the Mad Max franchise and amped it up, and it got like 7 Oscars or something like that. And so I feel like me and everyone else was really hyped, like, oh, the original dude's coming back to Alien. This is going to be great. And then I heard nothing, even like 2 weeks ago, about Alien Covenant up till now.
Yeah.
But sorry to get side tangent on that.
You're good. There is a history behind it.
I think I really enjoyed this movie.
Okay.
And that's me as an Alien fan blocking out some of the bad parts. And I will admit that I'm sort of not thinking about the Jason Bourne-esque fight between the two androids and stuff that was completely out of place. They could have fought in a more interesting way. But I think when it comes down to it, this is a really cool movie if you like the Aliens franchise. If you like the Aliens franchise, I assume you're already used to movies that aren't perfect, but like they're cool and interesting. You know, they're not 2001: A Space Odyssey. They're not a Kubrick film where they're perfectly directed and all that stuff. But you get what I mean. Like, I love every single. This movie's easy to appreciate, especially coming off of Prometheus, which you could tell what they were doing, and I think Covenant did what they were trying to do in Prometheus.
Okay.
Prometheus left too many questions open that were actually important, I think. Because Alien left questions open, like, what is this ship? Why is that guy in that gunner seat? But you sort of didn't need to know those answers. Prometheus left you with a lot of questions that it was like, oh, you don't know that? Well, that's why you don't know what's going on in this scene. And, like, motivations were fuzzy with certain characters. But I think this movie clears a lot of those questions up. And the questions it asks with this one, it's sort of showing it's going to answer these in the future.
With character motivations, like, which character motivations were you?
In the first film, Dave the android, you think he's a rogue robot, which, spoilers for Covenant, he ends up being. But I don't think in Prometheus his original intentions were to go rogue. Even though in this movie, the opening scene is showing that since the beginning, he's been, like, inceptioned with thoughts of, oh, I'm going to outlive my maker and I'm going to take control. In the first film, he's, like, poisoning the crew. He's doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, he puts the thing in the guy's
oh, he's going rogue. It's another android trying to do experiments, not caring about the crew's life. But it turns out Weyland-Yutani's on there, and his character goes from cool rogue android to he's just a servant that's been doing what Weyland-Yutani's been telling him to do. So it's like, oh, his character's not as deep as we thought it was. And there's even a deleted scene that shows after his head, Dave's head gets ripped off after they meet an engineer. And he's laying on the ground next to a dead Weyland-Yutani, and he starts...
Who's Weyland-Yutani?
He's... Weyland-Yutani is the corporation that sent the original mining ship out in the first one.
Gotcha.
They're the ones that send out the Marines and the guy in the second movie.
Yeah.
They're
Aliens.
the company. They're the evil company that comes in at the end to extract Ripley in the end of the third one. They're the one that clone aliens and Ripley in the fourth. They're the sort of like, oh, can this day get any worse? Sort of like you're already dealing with this alien, and then here's this organization that's also trying to kill you on the other end.
Yes. Okay.
But David, when Weyland-Yutani's dead on the ground after being killed by that engineer, you think David's last words are all like, oh, I'll miss you, master. And he's very sad about Weyland being dead, which I think thankfully that was a deleted scene because I love what they're going into with David in this film. I like the idea of a sort of rogue AI. They talk about it's because he was such a prototype that he still has his human emotions dialed up. Clearly he's going to be the villain of the third film, and I like that they were sort of holding back that he is like the center of this trilogy. And you know what? I don't mind that because they already did 4 movies where the alien was the center, and honestly that is what you're coming for, but with the alien being a backdrop and like a goal for the villain, I feel like it ties in well enough so where Alien fans should be able to appreciate that.
Right, you like it because it wasn't just another Alien film with all the familiar faces.
We've gotten 4 of those, and then we've got AVP.
Yeah, that we don't with Paul AVPs. Anderson, director of Mortal Kombat. Yeah. And one thing I think is cool is in the Dark Horse comics, this movie takes a lot from the Dark Horse comics that I like. I forget what year they came out. My dad used to show these to me. And my favorite scene, the one I remember most, is I think it was a soldier. They gave him like alien genes because they were testing on him. And he went crazy, sort of like these people do with that black goo. And he just starts tearing the place apart. They like shoot his arm off and he keeps coming at him. And then they have to like bomb the place. Yeah.
And so this movie felt like it was doing that in like a really cool and more of like a horror movie aspect way. And I could tell they were going for horror in some spots, but the movie was like so well lit and the xenomorph isn't hiding in the shadows. The new one, which is actually called a neomorph, it's white, like you can see it everywhere.
White xenomorphs.
Yeah, and it's not as scary if this little thing's crawling around, and like I felt unthreatened by it watching it tear people apart because I'm like, oh, all they need to do is like stomp on it.
I don't know. They were shooting it, and it didn't do shit.
But it still came off.
Okay, so my thoughts on Alien Covenant was it was just okay, so and
I completely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of the franchise, I will admit, and I've seen some videos and read some reviews from people who are fans who are very upset with it, I suppose, because
I can understand every angle of this film. I can see where you want the aliens, or you thought the horror was too cheesy. There's a lot of cliches in this movie. That is one thing I will not forgive this movie for, is its amount of cliches and how I could see almost everything coming.
Yeah, I mean the main thing that seemed to upset a lot of fans was that it answered the whole lore of how the aliens came to be. And they didn't especially the way it happens. It wasn't really appreciated. The characters were pretty much just disposable body bags, and the structure was kind of all over the place. Now, here are my thoughts on the movie. The reason I only think it's decent is because we don't get any sort of connection to these characters or care about them in any way, which, in fairness, you don't really give a shit about the characters in Aliens, the James Cameron sequel. Well, they're just kind of these dumb Marines who just wait to die.
See, the difference there is that is one thing I also agree with. I didn't care about any of these characters, even though they were married and they tried to show grief. I feel like that was them trying to take a shortcut with character development. Even the Marines and Aliens, before they went out there, they spent like 10-15 minutes of them in the locker room being buddy with each other. They have lunch and stuff. They goof around. You at least get a little bit like
some camaraderie.
Yeah, this movie immediately starts off with them wanting you to feel bad for them just because they were husband and wife.
Yeah.
And then it's all of them grieving, and it's like, I don't care that all of them are grieving.
I don't know. Who's dead?
Yeah.
Who's married to who? There was no real establishment towards those characters. The worst part is there is a scene that shows them together having a good time, but it's on YouTube. It's like they wanted you to download the fucking DLC to see that, and it makes no fucking sense why that's there when they couldn't have just been in the movie. Was that the studio wanting to do that so they could cut the length of the film? Or what was it? I mean, like, James Franco's cameo was literally just him on an iPad climbing rocks, and immediately I just started thinking of like funny 127 Hours references when that was happening.
And you know what I'm seeing a lot of? I'm seeing a lot of people referring to his character as James Franco, and I think that's easy to do because they didn't set him up as anybody before they killed him. They killed him, and then they're like, oh, look, that guy who died was James Franco.
Yeah, Captain James Franco is dead. Like, we don't... Who the fuck... Okay, apparently he was in a relationship with Emily Waterston. Is that it? But yeah, apparently he was in a relationship with her, but we don't really understand that, with Katherine Waterston. And then all of a sudden, there's this captain who doesn't want to be captain, but he kind of has to be in this situation.
I didn't mind his character. A lot of people are hating on his character. I thought he was okay. It's hard to tell if it was bad acting or it was his character being nervous, being a captain now. I sort of liked the turmoil of that, you know, like making hard decisions, controlling a crew. Very Mass Effect-y.
Right.
Yes,
it was a little Mass Effect-y. Yeah, minus a horrible ending. But anyways, they at least the Alien films had Ripley. They had a character you could get behind. They had a character you really liked.
Yeah.
You know, who started... I mean, it's funny how James Cameron always made his second movies back then. Mm-hmm. The similarities between Aliens and Terminator 2, where the first film's a horror film, the second one's an action film. The first one, the woman isn't necessarily strong, but becomes strong towards the end. And by the second film, she's a fully fledged badass.
Yeah.
And all those kind of parallels are there, and they worked really well. And with this one, they try to make Katherine Waterston sort of a badass Ripley character. But
they tried to do that with Prometheus, too. They tried to make Shaw...
With Noomi Rapace,
They tried to make her a little bit, but they showed her being a little bit more vulnerable, I feel like.
But it was also completely ridiculous because I could not get over the whole plot hole of, like, she just stapled a baby out of her and then she's running around and jumping off of cliffs and climbing up. Like, are you serious?
God bless the people who understood Prometheus on the first watch.
Just like, how good, but that's so stupid. And I'll get into stupid parts of that movie in a moment. But, okay, so Katherine Waterston did not quite work as a Ripley character because I don't know if it was the way her character was written. There was no real arc for her. Just right off the bat, she's a badass. So we don't really see her get built up in that way. And even like when she was having badass moments, she was like weeping in between, which was really confusing.
I think they were trying to give her character by showing her mourning, and that was effective with Ripley because she was established. You got to see her before all of this, so you could sort of have that contrast. And they cut that part of the movie out for this. And that was one of the big mistakes. I feel like all the stuff that they decided to put on YouTube was so important. I feel like everyone would enjoy this movie a whole lot more if they had put those little portions in.
Just the bare minimum of getting to know your characters is fine. The other thing was, it just starts out with the disaster happening. Boom, there we are. Outside of the opening, I wish they didn't have the opening credits with the intro because it was very distracting when I'm trying to get into the scene of how David was created and Guy Pearce is building him and talking about him, and they just kept having these names of these people come up like it was some sort of union rule for their names.
Even worse, in Alien 3, it's opening up and it's doing that thing where it's showing credits and then a flash of a scene. And it's a very important scene where a facehugger crashes the ship and then impregnates Ripley, but they're cutting in between the credits and everything, and that's all. That's also very distracting.
I think someone told me it was some sort of union rule why they do that. I have no idea. But to me, it was just very distracting in that scene. Like, you could tell that was not at all meant to be in there. Mm-hmm. And they were just like, no, put their names in front. And I'm just like, no, it's taking me out of the scene. This is a very important scene with David. But at the same time, I'm looking, costume design by, cinematography by.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, just let me watch the damn scene. But... So once a disaster happens, they land on the planet, and then you kind of get to the real meat of the story, which is Michael Fassbender.
Yeah,
and he's great in it. He carries the movie, and he kind of had to.
I would not have liked this movie if they didn't continue that huge. This was such a big risk. Prometheus was such a hated on movie.
Yeah.
And for them to try and be like, no, we're going to really push this new, like, not very alien sort of centric storyline that we had before. And you know what? It paid off because that was the most interesting part of this movie. If they had focused on the crew the whole time, I would not be talking so nice about this movie.
Right, yeah, because if it was just about these random people who you don't care about, Sigourney Weaver carried Aliens. Mm-hmm. If it weren't for her, the movie would have been boring. But you get in the second act, and that's when you get into sort of the whole backstory of the alien and how they came to being and all that. And I know that's something that has separated a lot of fans and really enraged them. To me, I thought it was a very interesting. I can't really give away why I found it interesting because I spoil, how the aliens came to be and who created them and all that.
Oh, is this a non-spoiler cast?
Yeah, this part is.
Oh, okay.
But with just how they were created and why, it was a very different approach that I thought was a real good one. It helped tie things together very nicely in a neat little bow with Prometheus. And it kind of gave character motivation and built upon a character you wouldn't really think could be built upon. And I thought that was great. And then you get into the third act where basically it's a slasher film and, you have the good guys running away as the bad guys are trying to get them and they're trying to escape and there's big explosions and all that. And then there's a nice little twist ending that leads up to the next film. And I know some people take an issue with it. I completely understand why, because now the veil of mystery is gone, which that can be a very polarizing thing in films when you reveal something, but at the same time, like, fans are asking for years for answers, to the question of where the aliens from and this and that and the other, and they answer it, but now they're not happy that they answered it. So I guess you can't win with that. But I suppose the main thing that really irked me with the film is how fucking stupid this crew is. They're even dumber than the people on the Prometheus ship.
I was so scared. I'll give them a little bit of credit for the crew in that when I saw Danny McBride was a character named Tennessee who wore a cowboy hat.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I was like, here comes, they don't make that like my mom made grits back home or something.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was going to be quipping about Tennessee this whole movie. I was so terrified.
He's just going to be a prototype.
They showed some restraint, and they sort of used that to their advantage with him understanding the transmission was some country song.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but
I feel like his character was the only one I sort of liked because you sort of got to see his arc from him being like the Joker of the crew, and then his wife dies, and then he's taking things seriously. But like the other characters,
that's a very good point. He is a character that you actually like see grow and appreciate.
I would have cared more about him getting killed than if the main character. Like, I don't even remember her name.
Yeah, what was her name? Katherine Waterston.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
oh shit. Yeah.
But no, I like her character's name. I have no idea. Just they were just people to be killed off, and usually in alien films that's okay because the cast is usually people that you don't like that get killed off, with the exception of the first one, where there's a little differentiation between them. And I think people were hoping with Ridley Scott that he would have these characters you could connect to, but it was the same case with Prometheus, where there were just this group of idiots. Like, how could you be a scientist and go onto a planet you know nothing about, which Katherine Waterston was right. She said, we don't know what the fuck is out there. We shouldn't land at this planet. That's not the one we're supposed to be on. And then go there without space helmets on? Because, I don't know, maybe you could, breathe something in that will kill you, which it did. Fucking morons.
See, the two movies I think everyone can admit are good are Alien and Aliens, and those are the movies where they give you time. They at least put a little bit of effort into making you care about the characters. The other ones, Ripley crash lands onto a prison planet full of, like, rapists. So it's like, oh, these rapists are dying in this tunnel at the end of the movie?
Right.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And then in the fourth one, Ripley's a clone, and the people she's working with are space pirates and evil scientists. So everyone that's dying, you don't really care too much about.
Yeah, exactly.
Except a few characters.
So it follows along the lines of, like, the bad sequels in a way.
And I feel like Ridley Scott should have taken that as an example, because there are now 3 movies that did it badly and 2 that did it well. And I thought a director like Ridley Scott would be able to sort of see that contrast. Or
yeah, at least in Aliens, you liked Michael Biehn's character.
Yeah.
He kind of became the leader. Let's say, I mean, then there was a generic ones, like there was like the G.I. Jane character.
Yeah.
But
she at least had a little bit of motivation, and you think there's like a love story between her and one of the other Marines. So there's like at least a little bit of development, and like I remember that right there about her, at least.
There you go. And there was who am I thinking of? Who was the other? Oh, of course. How could I forget? Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
He was like this panicky idiot guy. You kind of want him to die, but at the same time, you kind of like him. And that's what
he's you. Like I would be screaming game over if I were on a planet.
I would be freaking out too. I'd be like, I'm out of here. No more.
Absolutely.
You know. So at least there was something differentiating about them. These guys, fucking cares.
They're all like weird.
They're bland, boring, emotionless people who just, like, I don't know, they cry when someone dies. Like, who is that? Oh, whatever. And when you can't connect to your characters, you can't connect to your story. And then, you know, you had the whole subplot with David, which, thank God, helped carry that movie and made and kept it interesting. And, you know, and like you said, it didn't just copy stuff that Aliens did. It was its own sort of independent film that very stubbornly didn't want to be another Alien film, which could be a good and a bad thing, you know.
Like Danny McBride's the only crew member that I ended up caring about, because like name anything about the other characters besides the captain was religious and the main character wanted to build a cabin somewhere.
Yeah, she wanted to build her little log cabin.
Like I can't remember a single other detail about them.
Her I guess boyfriend died, who was James Franco.
Yeah.
Captain James Franco was gone. That was it. But again, you could see the I think
and
it's
then
like a 2-minute scene.
Like such a fresh character like David comes in, and it's a machine discovering human emotions and dealing with the loss of somebody who he legitimately loved. And then meeting another clone and seeing what the human race wants him to be, and sort of just having a god complex. He is such an interesting character. And then when they go from the first act to that second act where we meet this character, it's like, oh my God, okay, this movie's getting good. And then in the third act, they're like, okay, back to what you loved, the crew. And it's like, no, go back to David, please.
Yes. That was the same issue I had with Prometheus, which is I liked everything in the beginning, where it was an interesting film about the creation of human beings and, who we really are, where we come from, all this. And then the second act is slasher movie, kill the crew, everybody run, things explode. And yes, you're coming into an alien film, but it's like the movie doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah.
Does it want to be an intelligent movie about faith and creation and being power hungry and, instilling our emotions in an artificial intelligence? Or does it just want to be a crazy horror movie with, all the usual tropes with, aliens popping up in the shower and killing people and all this and that? It's confused with what it wants to be because it has to balance those two sort of things. And it's like, why don't you just make an alien movie that doesn't have all that crazy action and blood and stuff? Well, that's because that wouldn't be something the studios would want to buy. That's why it wouldn't get made. But that would be a far more interesting film. And I think everybody was on board with Prometheus with sort of that first act stuff until, it gets in the second act and characters do stupid shit. I mean, you have a character who... an alien is chasing after her, and she grabs a gun, and she's shooting inside the ship right at the explosive.
I hated that.
Yeah.
That's another Rogue One, like, whoops, an explosive dropped there, or whoops, you shot a thing, and so a huge plot point happens.
Yeah, she shot at why didn't she just run outside the ship and then shoot at it? Why did she have to stay there and shoot right at the propane tanks? And blow the ship up. It's like, you deserve to blow the ship up. Fuck you.
Like, I guess she's panicking or whatever, but that was sort of... I'll give it a pass, because the other Alien movies I like have done stuff like that.
Yeah. Did they do that in the first one where they did stupid shit that, like, screwed everyone over? I don't remember.
They made stupid decisions in, like, the second one.
Did they? I don't remember that.
I'm trying to remember. I shouldn't have brought that up since I can't remember any examples.
Because I don't think they really necessarily did. They just, you just had Bill Paxton who was panicking, and then Michael Biehn would have to, like, tell him to get his shit together. But overall, like, they kind of operated well as a unit. The only thing is they told them not to go to that planet where all the aliens were, but they were going to go anyways because the corporation wanted them to go there. What were they called? Like the Tyrell Corporation?
Weyland-Yutani.
Weyland-Yutani. Okay, that was the same one with the guy in the second movie who reveals the thing to Ripley about how he sent that crew out to get a sample.
Yeah, he was working for... Weyland-Yutani's the one that finds her and wakes her up, or, No, I can't remember correctly. I think it is Weyland-Yutani that finds her and wakes her up and sends her on that mission as sort of like an advisor.
Yeah.
Because they secretly want her to get brought back. They don't really care about the colony.
Yeah.
I'm just hyped after this for what's coming next, because David, I think, is an excellent villain with an amazing motivation. It's a motivation we've seen before. It's an AI coming to life.
Yeah.
But they've built him up for 2 movies now, and I'm really excited to see the conclusion of this.
I think it's going to be the same movie.
Man who thinks he's a god.
I think it's going to be the same movie for the 3rd time in a row. I think it's just going to be intelligent first act, or in this case, it was the middle act.
If I get another Alien Covenant, I will not like the 3rd one, and I will like this one less.
Well, dude, that's what you're going to get. That's exactly what you're going to get.
I'm hoping, though.
No, I don't think that was the thing that pissed me off about this movie is not me as much, but like if you were a fan and you had problems with Prometheus, boy, do I understand the frustration, because they did not take a single fucking note from Prometheus whatsoever. They were
the only note I think they took was more aliens, and then they gave you sort of aliens. They gave you the neomorphs and the protomorphs.
Yeah.
But
that was it. Just more aliens, and Prometheus wasn't.
The one thing I did like was when the neomorph was standing on its hind legs and sort of stood like a human. Mm-hmm. Other people thought that was stupid. I was more like, oh, that's kind of horrifying and interesting. And then they immediately kill it and don't do anything about it.
When I was talking to Michael Fassbender, and he's like, no! It was understanding me!
And see, I actually sort of like that because it showed, like, oh, shoot, look, David just showed, like, a real strong human emotion.
Yeah. Well, at that point, he was just as human as the others.
Yeah.
Just flawed and stupid like the rest of us. I guess we can get into spoilers a little bit here.
I'm sorry,
so,
yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. What time mark are we at? I'm just going to cut it and then do spoilers, so... Spoilers!
Into the spoilers.
All right, so here's the thing. David creates the aliens. I thought that was great. It was a synthetic life, I always wanted to make a movie.
He hasn't made a xenomorph yet.
Yeah, right. But he kind of tampered with the formula. He kind of cooked it himself. Like, it was already there. But I like the idea that something that's not meant to create life creates life. It plays with the notion of gods and all that, and he wanted to be a god. And I always wanted to make a movie where a robot creates humans, or a robot creates life of some sort, specifically humans for me. And that kind of played upon that, where something that wasn't meant to create life did. And it adds this whole different sort of emotion as to, are we okay with something like that happening? Should we allow an AI to feel? Sort of these old themes, but this time, instead of like feeling bad for the robot connected to him, it's not like David from AI, the movie AI, which I think is vastly overlooked. But this is a movie about the repercussions, the bad sort of angle of if you give a robot emotions.
And I think the scene that's at the center of showing how David feels and like his drive is in Prometheus.
Yeah.
One of the crew asks, they're talking about, they're like, blah, 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 why would you want to meet your creator?
Yeah.
And then they said something along the lines of like, I want to know why I was made.
Yeah.
And then David, it was sort of like well, do you? And then David brings up like, well, you made me. And they said, and that crew member, I don't remember the conversation exactly, but he ends up saying,
he talks about how Guy Pearce brought him up and how like he wasn't that special to him.
He says, we only made you because we could.
Yeah.
And then David says, well, how would you feel like if you found out that's what they did? And it's starting to seem like that's what the engineers. Yeah. Maybe we were like making crops for them or something because there was wheat on that one planet.
Yeah, I mean, to him, think of it from this angle. If someone told you, well, we made you because we could, that's like your parents saying to you, like, you were an accident. Like that's kind of how it sounds like to him. Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it.
It's like that's heartbreaking. So of course you want to create life and have them all feel the pain and misery like you did. And then he comes to the planet where the makers, the guys who made the humans.
Yeah, the engineers.
Yes, the engineers that they're at, and he unleashes the whole alien swarm on them and kills them all.
Yeah, that black goo.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about if those are engineers and if we're finally going to find out any little tidbit about them in the next movie. Because there's talk about how that group that he dropped them on that there are different classes of engineers because in Prometheus there was a cutscene where there were elders in hoods and there was that guy who sacrificed himself in the beginning and then there was that soldier towards the end that they woke up and he had like pure porcelain skin, and then these engineers that they dropped it on, they weren't built like Adonis's, or some of them were like fat, some of them had like paler skin, some of them had whites in their eyes, and there was like a king there. So they're thinking maybe he just did that to like lesser people in the engineer class system, but that probably doesn't matter and that's convoluted. But if it is, I hope it's explained in the next movie.
Yeah. Well, here's what I want the next movie to be, but it won't be that. Which is, let's make a movie that doesn't have a dumb third act or a dumb group of people who get killed because they do stupid shit. And let's make a movie that just focuses on the lore and explaining it and being a smart film and not being confused as to what it wants to be.
And you know what? The thing is this movie, as an Alien fan, it's good, But I don't think like general audiences will really appreciate it or would be able to from what this movie gives you.
Yeah, it's like I found the middle act. I think, from what audiences say, it's like I think they wanted more of a Prometheus movie with the good aspects of Prometheus. Yeah. Not the murdering the crew at the third act, run around explosion stuff, but the actual explanation and the philosophical elements of the film. I get it. They have to have action. They have to sell it on that, but it just doesn't work like that,
Aliens at peak enjoyableness when it's a dark hallway and you don't know where it is and stuff. And that sort of ran dry, but when I thought they were going to go back to that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun. They're running around in a dark ship when her and Tennessee are running around at the end with Dave closing the doors, which I don't know why he was helping them in the end. Couldn't he have just let the protomorph get them, and then that would have made things a lot easier?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, they're going through this dark hallway, but then they just end up in a well-lit hangar where they're fighting it, and their camera shots are making sure you see it, and you see its full body, and everything's well-lit, and
the aliens looked kind of phony when it was like you saw the full CG shots of them.
I don't like any CG aliens.
Yeah,
I think the practical, like the alien mother from the second one, still holds up because it was practical effects.
Yes, it's if you want it to move more and have more life to it, mix it around a bit. Don't just have all these long reveal shots of it running around, because then it's not filmed on the screen. There's no physicality to it. It's just CGI, which is just the equivalent of an animated cartoon character.
And there was no stakes in killing this alien at the end of the movie. Unlike the other movies where, this thing had killed every other character that you might have cared about. And this one, all the other characters died from different aliens.
Yeah.
And then this one that they're chasing around at the end, it just sort of... It killed that one couple that was having sex in the shower that I can't even name one of them. And also, why were they trying to have a sex scene in the middle of an aliens movie?
And why would they go and have sex in the shower after this horrible thing happened?
They just watched all their friends die, and they barely escaped a planet alive.
And they think maybe they should be a little on point, be a little alert. No, let's just fuck in the shower. Everything's fine. Let's blast some music while we're fucking in the shower. We'll be okay.
But
yeah,
you deserve to die. The
mood
would have never been hotter than that moment.
Oh, God, yeah. Woo. Talk about a cum shot.
Jesus.
Okay, now we're getting off topic. But the reason Alien and Aliens worked was because they were very simple stories.
Yes.
They were very much, here's the crew. They see a strange anomaly on a planet. They go check it out. And then this bad, evil thing kills them, and they gotta escape. And then they kill the alien, and then everything's okay. The main character lives, and the film. Second movie, same sort of situation, except now our protagonist doesn't want to go to that planet because she knows what's gonna happen, but they do it anyways. And then you kind of go through the same thing, except it's in the vein of an action movie, so it's a little different, gives it some more flavor.
See, I think...
And then they do it in the third film, and everyone's getting bored with it. And then you do it in the fourth film, and it gets more ridiculous, and people get bored with it. And then they make Prometheus, and it starts off with this really cool, unique, different thing. And then it turns into an alien movie without the aliens. And then Alien Covenant, starts out right off the gate like shit's going wrong. But we don't know who any of these people are. And then it gets interesting. And then it becomes the same film. Like, what movie do you want to make? If you're going to make an alien movie, just make a dumb alien movie.
See, the problem with these first two newer movies is they're not simplistic, and they're sort of taking... both movies are half measures, and they're scared. They're like, okay, we're going to make this really complex, but also we'll throw in aliens.
Yeah.
Please don't be angry at us. But people like the complex stuff. They want more of it, and they're upset that they, only half measured it and gave you only open questions. And this movie did more of that, and the things that people like from this new movie is the complex stuff they're scared to show you. So I think if this third movie I'm just hoping, and I know studio involvement will probably not allow this to happen, but if they just are allowed to do what they want to, clearly what they want to do with this story, then I think the third one will be enjoyable.
Just make a straight up film about
for everybody,
about
not just
answering
fans.
questions, and for everyone. An interesting film, not a horror movie, but it's not gonna. Yeah, it's gonna be.
I'm just hoping for like a Revenge of the Sith, where these first two movies aren't hot.
Yeah.
But I appreciate them, sort of like I did the prequels, where I don't think the first two prequels are anything to write home about, but I appreciate them for what they are. And then Revenge of the Sith, I feel like you're allowed to say that was okay.
Yeah. That's true. Well,
bare minimum, I'm hoping for this next one.
Revenge of the Sith, at least shit hit the fan and it got interesting. But yep, that was it. So Alien Covenant. Would you recommend it?
If you're an Alien fan to the degree where you can... If you've been obviously listening to this podcast and things have made sense, or if this sounds... At least, if you're interested, then go see it with previous knowledge. Maybe watch like a wrap-up online before you go. So you feel deeper emotions than this movie gives you.
Specifically Prometheus.
So not an automatic recommendation, but if you're interested, make sure to pregame with some Alien knowledge.
Gotcha. If you just like dumb horror movies, you'll like it.
That too. That scene where like half of his corpse is hanging off of the bed is gnarly, but sort of like a cool visual.
Yeah. I'd say if you like dumb horror movies, this is a good...
Oh, absolutely.
Dumb horror movie with smart elements to it. Otherwise, if you're like a huge Alien fan and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be as good as the first one, nope, sorry, pal. This is Prometheus all over again.
Don't get your hopes up. Yeah.
It's Prometheus all over again. They didn't take any notes, so if you had the same issues with it that I did, wait for it to be on demand or something like that.
And then just watch the middle part with David, and then you're all good.
Yep, exactly. We're going to censor out David's name. All right. So, thanks a lot, Alex, for coming on. And
thank you for having me on.
Yep.
And taking me to the movie.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it. All right. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Good one.
Or review this fucking movie.